Staff Sergeant Maria Santos pressed her eye against the scope of her modified Barrett rifle, watching the alien encampment through the early morning mist of Kepler 442b. The Zephyrian forces had been building their forward operating base for 3 days now, and their arrogance was almost painful to witness. They moved in tight formations, never bothering to post proper sentries, and their officers stood in the open discussing tactics as if they were completely invulnerable. 37 years of military experience, Maria muttered to herself, adjusting her position on the rocky outcrop. And these purple-skinned idiots think they can just waltz onto a human colony world without consequences? Her unit crackled to life. Overwatch, this is Colonel Reynolds. What's your assessment of the enemy position? Maria keyed her mic. Sir, I count approximately 200 Zephyrian soldiers. 6 heavy walkers and what looks like a command tent in the center of their camp. They're positioned in a valley with limited escape routes, no air cover, and their perimeter security is a joke. Copy that, Overwatch. Hold position until the main force arrives. We'll have reinforcements in 6 hours. Maria frowned. 6 hours was a long time, and she could see the aliens were preparing to move out soon. Their energy signatures suggested they were powering up for an assault on New Adelaide, the nearest human settlement. 3,000 civilians lived there, including her sister's family. She switched to the tactical frequency. Colonel, permission to engage? Negative, Overwatch. Wait for backup. That's an order. Maria gritted her teeth but acknowledged the command. She'd spent 2 days getting into this perfect position, crawling through mud and alien vegetation, and now she had to watch while the enemy prepared to attack innocent people the Zephyrians had arrived at. Kepler 442b, claiming the planet belonged to their empire by right of conquest. They'd given the human colonists 72 hours to evacuate before they would cleanse the world for proper Zephyrian occupation. The Galactic Council had sided with the aliens, stating that humanity's claim to the planet was invalid since they lacked proper galactic citizenship status. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that Maria Santos wasn't just any sniper. She was the daughter of Carlos Santos, the man who had revolutionized long-range shooting by incorporating quantum trajectory calculations into traditional ballistics. She'd been shooting since she was 8 years old and had never missed a shot that mattered in her entire military career. Through her scope, she watched a tall Zephyrian officer emerge from the command tent. His uniform was decorated with what looked like battle honors, and the way other aliens deferred to him suggested he was in charge of the operation. General Vextar, according to the intelligence briefing she'd received, Maria had read Vextar's file. He'd conquered 17 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire, always using overwhelming force and terror tactics. On Rigel Prime, he'd ordered the execution of every colonist over the age of 16. On New Bangalore, he'd used chemical weapons against civilian populations. The man was a monster, and he was about to do the same thing to New Adelaide. She adjusted her scope settings and began calculating the shot. Range, 2,847 meters. Wind speed, 6.2 kilometers per hour from the southwest. Atmospheric pressure, slightly lower than Earth normal. Temperature, -4 degrees Celsius. The Zephyrians' vital organs were positioned differently than a human's, but she'd studied their anatomy extensively. Her finger hovered over the trigger as she watched Vextar point toward New Adelaide and bark orders to his subordinates. Several alien soldiers began loading equipment onto their vehicles. Time was running out. Overwatch, this is Colonel Reynolds. We've received intelligence that the enemy is preparing to move out ahead of schedule. Can you confirm? Maria's heart sank. Confirmed, sir. They're loading up now. Estimated departure in 30 minutes. Damn, we're still 4 hours out. There's no way we can intercept them before they reach New Adelaide. Maria made her decision. Sir, I'm in position to take out their command structure. 1 shot, 1 kill. Without Vextar, their forces will be in disarray. Negative, Sergeant. You have explicit orders to wait for backup. That's a direct command. With respect, sir, by the time backup arrives, 3,000 civilians will be dead. I can end this right now. There was a long pause on the come. Overwatch, you are not authorized to engage. If you disobey this order, you'll face a court-martial. Do you understand? Maria closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about her sister Elena and her two young nephews living in New Adelaide. She thought about all the innocent families who had come to this world seeking a better life, only to face extinction at the hands of an alien empire that saw them as nothing more than vermin to be exterminated. I understand. Sir, she said finally, but understanding an order and obeying it were two different things. Maria switched off her cum and returned to her scope. General Vextar was still visible, now consulting what looked like a tactical display with his officers. The perfect shot was right there, waiting for her to take it. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heart rate slow to its combat rhythm. This was what she'd trained for her entire life. Every hour on the range, every competition, every deployment had led to this moment. The moment when one human being could make a difference against impossible odds. The Zephyrians had dismissed humanity as a primitive species unworthy of galactic recognition. They saw humans as weak, technologically inferior, and militarily insignificant. What they failed to understand was that humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. And sometimes the most advanced technology in the galaxy couldn't compensate for raw skill and determination. Maria's finger tightened on the trigger. The crosshairs settled on General Vextar's center mass, accounting for the alien's different anatomy. She had one chance to save New Adelaide, and she wasn't going to let bureaucracy and military protocol stand in her way. For Elena, she whispered, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report echoed across the valley like thunder. The specially designed round, accelerated by electromagnetic coils and guided by micro-adjustments, streaked through the thin atmosphere at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. It covered the 2.8-kilometer distance in just over 2 seconds. General Vextar's body jerked as the round punched through his chest and exited in a spray of purple blood. He collapsed instantly, his vital organs destroyed by the hydrostatic shock of the impact. The effect on the Zephyrian forces was immediate and dramatic. Soldiers who had been moving with purpose suddenly stopped, staring in shock at their fallen commander. Officers began shouting orders in their harsh native language. But without Vextar's central authority, chaos quickly spread through the ranks. Maria worked the bolt of her rifle and acquired her next target, the alien who seemed to be trying to take command. Another officer, this one with slightly different insignia. She adjusted for the new range and angle, took a breath, and fired again. The second Zephyrian dropped just as quickly as the first. Panic erupted in the alien camp. Soldiers began running in different directions, some seeking cover behind vehicles while others tried to organize a defensive perimeter. But they had no idea where the shots were coming from, and their training hadn't prepared them for this kind of precise, long-range threat. Maria continued her deadly work with methodical precision. Third shot, the communications officer who was trying to call for backup. Fourth shot, the weapons specialist attempting to activate their heavy cannons. Fifth shot, another mid-level commander trying to restore order. Each kill sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian force. These aliens had conquered world after world through superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they'd never faced an enemy who could kill their leadership from nearly 3 kilometers away with surgical precision. Within 15 minutes, Maria had eliminated the entire command structure of the Zephyrian force. The remaining soldiers, now leaderless and terrified, began abandoning their positions and fleeing toward their ships. Some tried to take vehicles, but Maria disabled those with well-placed shots to engine blocks and control systems. She watched through her scope as the alien force that had been preparing to massacre 3,000 innocent civilians dissolved into a disorganized mob of frightened soldiers running for their lives. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had never been defeated in open combat, had been brought to its knees by a single human sniper with a rifle and the skill to use it effectively. Maria finally allowed herself a small smile as she began packing up her equipment. Her comm unit was buzzing with incoming messages, probably Colonel Reynolds demanding to know what had happened, but she ignored it for now. She had work to finish. The Zephyrian heavy walkers were still operational, And while their crews had abandoned them, someone else might try to use them later. Maria shifted position and began systematically destroying the mechs with shots to their power cores and weapon systems. Each shot was perfectly placed, rendering the multi-million credit war machines into expensive scrap metal dot as the last walker exploded in a satisfying fireball. Maria reflected on what had just happened. The Galactic Empire had dismissed her warning about the consequences of attacking human civilians. They'd assumed that their technological superiority would be enough to sweep aside any resistance. They'd be... Admiral Keffer of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. The holographic representation showed the remains of General Vexstar ground force scattered across the valley like broken toys. Red icons indicated destroyed vehicles, while yellow markers showed the positions where his most experienced officers had been killed. Explain to me again how 200 of our finest soldiers were defeated by a single human, Kethver said, his voice carrying the dangerous calm that his subordinates had learned to fear. Commander Zelenth, the ship's intelligence officer, consulted his datapad with trembling hands. Admiral, our preliminary analysis suggests the human sniper eliminated General Vexstar and his entire command structure from a range of approximately 2.8 kilometers. The shots were impossibly accurate, each one targeting vital organs with surgical precision. Impossible? Scoffed Captain Mordock from the weapons station. No primitive human weapon could achieve such accuracy at that range. Our intelligence reports clearly state that human technology is centuries behind our own. Kethver remained silent, studying the battle footage captured by their surveillance drones. The timestamps showed the devastating attack had lasted exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds. 17 minutes to destroy a force that should have been capable of conquering an entire planet. Show me the projectile analysis, he ordered. The main display shifted to show microscopic imagery of the recovered bullet fragments. Zelenth highlighted various features as he spoke. The projectiles appear to be constructed of a tungsten-depleted uranium alloy with electromagnetic acceleration grooves. The design is elegant in its simplicity, but the precision manufacturing required suggests a level of metallurgical expertise we didn't credit to human industry. Admiral Kethver's secondary arms, normally kept folded against his torso in a gesture of relaxation, unfolded and began tapping against his command throne. It was a nervous habit that appeared only when he was deeply troubled. In his 40 years of military service, he had never encountered an enemy capable of such devastating long-range precision. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 347 worlds over the past 3 centuries. Their military doctrine was built around overwhelming technological superiority and coordinated mass assaults. They had never faced an enemy that relied on individual skill and precision rather than superior firepower. Admiral, interrupted Communications Officer Veltar, we're receiving an encrypted transmission from the human colonial government. Put it through. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a middle-aged human woman wearing the simple uniform of a colonial administrator. Governor Sarah Chun looked remarkably calm for someone whose world was under invasion by a galactic superpower. Admiral Kethver, she said, her voice steady and professional. I believe we need to talk. Kethver leaned forward in his command chair. Governor Chun, I trust you're calling to discuss the terms of your surrender. After what happened to General Vexstar's force, I'm prepared to be generous in my conditions. Chun's expression didn't change. Actually, Admiral, I'm calling to offer you the opportunity to withdraw your forces from our system before this situation escalates further. The bridge fell silent. Several of Kethver's officers exchanged glances of disbelief. Captain Morduck actually laughed out loud. Governor, I have 3 dreadnoughts in orbit around your planet, Kethver said slowly. Each one carries enough firepower to reduce your colonies to glass. One sniper, however skilled, cannot protect you from orbital bombardment. That's true, Sean acknowledged. But you're making the same mistake General Vexstar made. You're assuming that Maria Santos is the only surprise we have prepared for you. Kethver felt a chill run down his spine. Explain. Sergeant Santos is one of 47 snipers we have positioned throughout this system. Each one is currently targeting critical systems on your ships. Your engines, your weapons arrays, your shield generators, your bridge windows. While your vessels are certainly powerful, they weren't designed to defend against precision strikes from weapons you can't detect or track. The Admiral's tactical display automatically zoomed in on his ship's hull, highlighting dozens of potential weak points that a skilled marksman might exploit. The Sovereign's Wrath was nearly 2 kilometers long and bristled with defensive systems, but most of those systems were designed to counter large-scale attacks from other warships, not individual projectiles fired from extreme range. You're bluffing, Kethver said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Chun asked. Would you like me to have one of our snipers demonstrate? I believe Corporal Jackson has a clear shot at your port engine cooling intake. The damage would be minimal, but it should prove our point. Before Kethver could respond, his engineering officer's voice crackled over the comm system. Admiral, we're detecting a projectile impact on the port engine cooling system. Minor damage, but the shot came from the planetary surface. Tracking indicates the round was fired from a range of... That can't be right. What's the range, engineer? Sir, the computer calculates a firing position 127 kilometers from the impact point. That's impossible for any kinetic weapon. Governor Chun smiled on the display. Corporal Jackson is quite proud of that shot. He's been practicing extreme range targeting since he was 12 years old. His personal record is 186 kilometers under optimal conditions. Admiral Kethver's mind raced. If the humans really had dozens of snipers positioned throughout the system, his fleet was in serious danger. The Zephyrian ships relied on complex, interconnected systems that could be crippled by precise damage to key components. A single well-placed shot could disable a dreadnought's main weapons, leaving it vulnerable to follow-up attacks. What do you want? He asked finally. Withdraw your forces from this system immediately, Chun replied. Return to Zephyrian space and inform your government that human colonies are no longer easy targets. If you choose to leave peacefully, no further action will be taken against your ships. And if I refuse? Chun's expression hardened. Then you'll discover why humans have survived and thrived on hundreds of death worlds throughout the galaxy. We don't just fight with superior technology, Admiral. We fight with intelligence, creativity, and the kind of individual skill that your empire seems to have forgotten in its pursuit of overwhelming force. Captain Mordick leaned toward his admiral. Sir, we can't let these primitives dictate terms to the Empire. Order the orbital bombardment. Even if they damage our ships, we can still complete the mission. Kethver considered the option. The Zephyrian doctrine was clear: never show weakness to inferior species. But something about this situation felt different. The humans weren't acting like a defeated enemy begging for mercy. They were acting like hunters who had their prey exactly where they wanted them. Governor Chun, he said slowly, you mentioned that your snipers are targeting critical systems. What about our crew quarters? Our life support systems? Our bridge? The human woman's smile turned predatory. Admiral, what do you think happened to General Vexstar? Our people don't just target equipment when the situation calls for more decisive action. The implications hit Kethver like a physical blow. If human snipers could penetrate his ship's hull with their weapons, they could target anyone on board. His crew of 8,000 was suddenly vulnerable to attack from enemies they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't fight back against using conventional methods. This is unprecedented, he muttered. No species has ever threatened Zephyrian ships in this manner. No species has ever needed to, Chun replied. Most civilizations develop their military doctrine around large-scale conflicts between equivalent forces. Humans learn to fight by surviving on worlds where a single mistake meant death. We've had 10,000 years to perfect the art of asymmetric warfare. Commander Zilinth cleared his throat. Admiral, perhaps we should consult with Imperial Command before making any decisions. Kethver nodded slowly. Governor Chun, I need time to consider your proposal. You have 1 hour, Admiral. After that, my people will begin targeting more critical systems. I should mention that we also have teams standing by to disable your communication arrays, which would prevent you from calling for backup. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Kethver stared at the tactical display, trying to process what had just happened. The Zephyrian Empire had just been threatened by a collection of human colonists armed with primitive kinetic weapons, and the threat was credible. Options? He asked his staff. We could launch all our fighters, suggested Captain Morduck. Saturate the planetary surface with small craft. They can't target them all. And expose our pilots to the same precision fire that destroyed our ground forces? Kethver shook his head. These humans have proven they can hit targets from impossible ranges. Our fighters would be sitting ducks. What about a full orbital bombardment? Offered Zilland. Glass the entire planet before they can react. Kethver considered it. The option was certainly available, but something about the human governor's confidence troubled him. She had spoken as if she knew exactly what he was thinking and had countermeasures prepared for every possibility. Run a tactical analysis, he ordered. I want to know Emperor Thaxelf the Conqueror sat upon his obsidian throne in the heart of the imperial palace, surrounded by holographic displays showing military deployments across 17 sectors of the galaxy. His 4 arms moved constantly across control surfaces, monitoring the expansion of Zephyrian influence throughout known space. For 300 years, his empire had grown without interruption, absorbing world after world into its domain. The urgent communication from Admiral Kethver changed everything. Repeat your report. Admiral, the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing through the vast throne chamber. Kethver's image flickered on the main display. The Admiral's normally proud bearing replaced by obvious uncertainty. Your Imperial Majesty, the human colony on Kepler 442b has ... demonstrated capabilities that were not included in our intelligence assessments. They have successfully neutralized General Vextar's entire ground force using precision long-range weapons, and they are currently threatening our fleet with similar tactics. A single human colony is threatening 3 Imperial dreadnoughts. The Emperor's tone carried deadly calm. Around the throne chamber, his advisors shifted nervously. Yes, Your Majesty. Their snipers appear capable of targeting specific ship systems from planetary surface positions. We've confirmed at least 1 successful strike against the Sovereign's Wrath from a range of over 100 kilometers. Emperor Thaxelf leaned forward, his primary arms gripping the armrests of his throne. Admiral, you commanded the fleet that conquered the Rigelian Defense Network. You personally led the assault that broke the Centauri Federation. Are you telling me that you cannot defeat a collection of primitive human farmers? Your Majesty, these are not typical colonists. Our analysis suggests they are military veterans with specialized training in asymmetric warfare. Their tactics are unlike anything we have encountered in our previous conquests. The Emperor's chief military advisor, General Morthax, stepped forward. Your Imperial Majesty, perhaps Admiral Kethver is overestimating the threat. Humans are classified as a Class C species. Their weapons technology is centuries behind our own. Then explain how they destroyed an entire Zephyrian battle group. The Emperor snapped. General Morthax consulted his datapad. Clearly, there has been some sort of intelligence failure. I recommend we dispatch additional forces to resolve this minor incident quickly. Emperor Thaxelf stood from his throne, his full 3-meter height making him tower over his advisors. General, minor incidents do not destroy elite military units. Send me a complete strategic assessment of human military capabilities within the hour. As his advisors scurried to comply, the Emperor activated his private communication channel to Admiral Kethver. Admiral, I want details. Everything you know about these human tactics. Kethver straightened in the hologram. Your Majesty. They call it sniper warfare. Individual soldiers with specialized weapons engage targets from extreme range, often from concealed positions. The effectiveness depends entirely on the skill of the individual shooter rather than technological superiority. And you believe this represents a genuine threat to Imperial forces? Your Majesty, I've reviewed the tactical recordings. These humans achieved precision that our own weapons specialists consider theoretically impossible. They eliminated targets at ranges where our sensors couldn't even detect the firing positions. The Emperor processed this information. The Zephyrian military doctrine had been developed over centuries of successful conquest. It relied on overwhelming force, advanced technology, and coordinated mass attacks. The concept of individual soldiers achieving strategic results through personal skill was alien to their military thinking. Admiral, what is your current status? The human colonial government has given us 1 hour to withdraw from their system, Your Majesty. That deadline expires in... Kethver checked his chronometer. 18 minutes. You are seriously considering retreat? Your Majesty. My tactical analysis indicates that these humans can systematically disable our ships, critical systems while remaining immune to conventional counterattack. If we remain in this system, we risk losing the entire fleet. Emperor Thaxilf began pacing behind his throne. In 3 centuries of rule, no enemy had ever forced a Zephyrian admiral to consider retreat. The implications went far beyond a single colony world. If word of this defeat spread throughout the galaxy, every subjugated species might begin questioning Zephyrian invincibility. General Morthax returned with his strategic assessment. Your Imperial Majesty, our analysis of human military history reveals disturbing patterns. Explain. Humans have been engaged in continuous warfare for their entire recorded history. Unlike most species which develop centralized military doctrines, humans have evolved thousands of different fighting styles adapted to various environmental and tactical situations. This sniper warfare is apparently just one of many specialized combat disciplines they have perfected. The Emperor stopped pacing. Continue. Their military records indicate successful campaigns against technologically superior enemies, using tactics we classify as ... impossible during their World War II. Individual human snipers achieved kill counts that exceed the casualties our entire regiments inflict during planetary conquests. Numbers? General, Morthax consulted his notes. A human sniper named Simo, he is credited with over 500 confirmed kills in less than 100 days of combat. Another, Ludmila Pavlichenko, achieved 309 confirmed kills. These numbers were achieved using primitive chemical propellant, weapons against enemies with superior equipment and training. Emperor Thaxilf felt something he had not experienced in decades. Genuine concern about military defeat. What else? Your Majesty, human military doctrine appears to emphasize individual initiative and adaptive thinking rather than strict adherence to predetermined strategies. They train their soldiers to operate independently behind enemy lines, to improvise solutions to unexpected problems, and to achieve objectives using whatever resources are available. While our doctrine emphasizes coordination and overwhelming force, the Emperor mused. Precisely, Your Majesty. Against most species, our approach is devastatingly effective. But humans seem to have developed military thinking specifically designed to counter technologically superior opponents. The communication panel chimed with an incoming transmission from Admiral Kethver. Your Imperial Majesty, the human deadline has expired. They are requesting our response. Put them through. Governor Sarah Chun appeared on the display, her expression calm and professional. Emperor Thaxilf, I trust Admiral Kethver has briefed you on our conversation. Human, you will address me as Your Imperial Majesty, the Emperor said coldly. Chun's expression didn't change. I'll address you with whatever respect you earn through your actions. Right now, you're an invader threatening innocent civilians. That doesn't merit much courtesy. The throne chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor with such casual disrespect and lived to repeat the experience. You realize that I command a fleet of over 8,000 warships? The Emperor said softly. And you realize that 8,000 warships are just 8,000 targets from my people? Shun replied. Emperor, your military has been very successful against enemies who fight the same way you do. Massed formations, technological superiority, coordinated attacks. But humans learned warfare in a different school. Enlighten me. We learned to fight on death worlds where everything was trying to kill us. We learned to survive against impossible odds using nothing but intelligence, skill, and determination. We've spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of making the strong vulnerable and turning size into a disadvantage. Governor Chun gestured, and her display showed tactical footage of the destroyed Zephyrian ground force. General Vexstar commanded 200 soldiers with advanced weapons and armor. Sergeant Santos defeated them using a rifle that's essentially unchanged from weapons we used 500 years ago. The difference wasn't technology, Emperor. It was skill. Emperor Thaxilth studied the footage with new understanding. He had been looking at the wrong metrics. Zephyrian intelligence had focused on human technology, fleet sizes, and industrial capacity while completely ignoring the individual capabilities of human soldiers. What do you want? He asked finally. Withdraw from this system and never return. Spread the word throughout your empire that human colonies are no longer easy targets. Find someone else to conquer, or better yet, try building something instead of just taking what others have created. And if I refuse? Chun's smile was predatory. Then you'll learn why humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved on death worlds and survived to reach space. We don't just fight with weapons, Emperor. We fight with ideas. The communication ended, leaving the throne chamber in tense silence. Emperor Thaxilth looked around at his advisors, seeing uncertainty and fear in their faces for the first time in decades. General Morthax, how many human colonies exist within Imperial space? The general consulted his datapad with trembling hands. Approximately 237 confirmed settlements, Your Majesty. Possibly more that we haven't discovered. And if each one contains veterans with skills similar to Sergeant Santos, Your Majesty, a coordinated human resistance could potentially...